guarantee.
Do what? He gave me a hard time about drinking diet.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll go through the agenda, get our questions answered for next week's council meeting. First, we have approval of minutes, August 30th, 2021, 5 p.m. work session, September 7th, 2021, 5:30 p.m. work session, and city council regular meeting, September 7th, 2021, 6 p.m. Any questions?
Nope.
All right, next is approval of monthly bills. Approve August 2021 monthly bills. Any questions? All right, next we have set public hearing, ordinance number 214474, set public hearing on pre-zoning request 137621 to be held on October 18th, 2021 at 10 a.m. Hey, Matt.
Hello, how's everyone?
Good. Are you going to kind of talk about all these at the same time?
If you'd like, that'd be
Okay,
just
I'll
fine.
read them all first then.
Okay.
The other one's ordinance number 214475, set public hearing for rezoning request 137321 to be held on October 18th, 2021 at 10 a.m. Ordinance number 214476, set public hearing for rezoning 137421 from R2 to R3 to be held on October 18th, 2021 at 10 a.m. And ordinance number 214477, set public hearing for rezoning request 137521 from R2 to R3 to be held on October 18th, 2021 at 10 a.m.
Okay. You want me to read back through any of that or just any
tell us
questions?
what they are. Yeah.
Okay, the first one for the McDonald's is 5 acres. It's out on Red Bank Road, and everything that's around it is also, as you can, I don't know if y'all have any maps or anything, but they want to go to R1, and everything around it is that same zoning. It was R6, which makes perfect sense, I think, to the planning department for it to be rezoned.
Okay.
Second item was for Melissa Curry, P. Wright McAnally. It's 18 acres, and like you mentioned, it goes from R2 to R3. The very next rezoning, they kind of go together. It once again makes perfect sense to us that the R3 seems like a very preferred rezoning because it gives a little bit more of a envelope that has more malleability compared to R2. They are smaller lots, but so far that has not really come up as far as the visual character. Rezoning 1375, the 7.9 acres, like I was saying, goes with the first one that Ms. Curry was also requesting. And let's see, the last one is the pre-zoning, which is a piece of property just north of the two zonings we were just talking about. That comes up later as an annexation, but also they would like to have that as an R3.
Okay. Any questions for Matt? And this is all in that kind of Braintree, Red Bank area?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. And we have, if you'd like, we've kept track of everybody's comments. There have been some for, some against, several that are just neutral. But the biggest concern was access. I think most people were fairly happy with the rezoning. It's just the access is what they're worried about.
If there were to be additional development.
Yeah, I don't think they would have a problem if there was another way out to Bend Pool Road.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Any questions or discussion? All right, thanks, Matt.
all right, thank you.
Next, we have resolutions. Resolution number 21257, accept Parenthood Initiative Grant. Suzanne?
This is to accept the Parenthood Initiative Grant. This is a $65,000 grant with an in-kind match of $32,500 to originate from the general fund of the Youth Services Department.
Okay, any questions on that one? All right, next is resolution number 21258, accept Family Matters Grant.
And this is the Family Matters Grant, which is for the same amount, $65,000 with an in-kind match of $32,500, also to originate from Decatur Youth Services Fund.
Any questions on that one? All right, thanks. Resolution number 21259, award bid number 21025R for sodium hypochlorite to Brentag Mid-South. Charles, are you on the line or here? Anybody want to talk to us about this bid? Kyle.
There we go. Why not?
A whole lot other than what was read. From my understanding, there was no concerns. Not sure. There he is. Come on, buddy.
He's here.
Just in time.
Hey,
This Judge, it was just a bid that, it was time briefly up to this is what we use for the coordination of codes. And, they came in as a lower bid, restructuring it,
Yeah, they were the sole respondent. Yeah, we had to rebid it.
okay, Charles.
Yeah, they were the sole respondent. We had to rebid this because, we got no responses, and it turned out that they found their response out in the parking lot in a mud hole. Picked up by FedEx. Or picked up by a common carrier.
Perfect.
Okay, any other questions on that one? All right, next is resolution number 21260, award bid number 21026 for concrete pipe to Foley Products.
Yes, sir, this is a standing bid that we had approaching expiration, so we rebid it. We got one response from Foley. They're basically the only provider in the area.
All right, any questions? All right, next is resolution number 21261, award bid number 21027 for bituminous plant mix to Rogers Group.
Yes, sir. Another standing bid that was approaching expiration. We got two responses, and Rogers was the lowest bidder on this.
All right, any questions? Thank you, sir. Next is, so on the budget ones, I'm gonna move to the bottom, if that's cool. All right. So we'll skip down to resolution number 21, let's see. Skipping a few. All right, it is, okay, resolution is K, we'll skip down to K. Resolution number 21267, award bid number 21031 for 27 patrol rifle quad rails to Gulf States Distributors.
Yes, sir. This is for the police department. On that one, we got 4 responses. One was a no bid, with Gulf States being the lowest. This actual purchase is not over bid limit, but using our commodity code system, this and like items, we had to put out a bid for it.
Okay, any questions? All right, next is resolution number 21268, Aldot financial assistance for transportation planning agreement approval.
Here's Dwayne.
Hey, Dwayne.
Your name's on there, but that's fine. This is basically the agreement between the state of Alabama, city of Decatur, and the MPO for the city to house the MPO in the city of Decatur. The agreement basically outlines all guidance, accounting, procedures that we had to go through for the MPO to be housed in the city. So basically what the agreement is, after it's signed, it will go to all Aldot officials and go to the governor to get it signed, and then they'll return it back to us.
Okay, any questions for Dwayne? Thank you, sir. Next is resolution number 21269, approve vacancy announcement and recruitment for municipal court judge.
Yes, so Judge Bill Cook has announced his intent to retire effective December 1st, which would make his last day with the city November 30th. We're bringing this forward to make the council aware. I do recommend that we follow our department director recruitment procedures, which we included as an attachment in that resolution. We're also recommending that residency in the city limits of Decatur be required for this position. This would be in a pay grade 25, and that would be a starting salary of $78,2009 up to $119,005, and then whatever starting pay would be based commensurate on experience and background.
Okay, any questions?
Just a comment. Certainly, I'm pleased that Judge Cook has gotten to this point in his career to where he has a earned retirement to look forward to, and we appreciate his service to the court. Be tough shoes to fill for sure.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. Any other questions? Thanks, Rochelle. Next is resolution number 21-270, approve new signatories on multiple city accounts.
This is just to update the bank records with the new Assistant City Clerk, Melissa Bowling.
Okay, any questions? Thanks, Stephanie. Next, resolution number 21-271, approval of lease extension of parking lot to People's Bank of Alabama.
And this is just continuing the lease. It started out going on, the first federal had to build it. It's the little round bank, 14th Street and US 31. The parking lot behind there, the city owns that, and we're leasing it to People's Bank. It's just renewing that lease.
Okay,
Thank you.
any
This
questions?
thing just keeps going around, doesn't it?
It's a roundabout.
You want somebody boo?
Tough crowd, Mayor. Tough crowd.
It's gonna be a long meeting. I guess that's-
Did I hear a boo out there? Somebody booed him?
All right, we'll move on to, we'll skip first reading ordinances of the general fund. Next is ordinance number 21-4472, approve annexation 36421, Windsor Place Phase 2, Timberland Partners LLC. Matt?
Yes, sir. This goes with that certificate, not certificate, the fourth item that we had from a moment ago, the pre-zoning. This is to annex that portion of this, what will be subdivision.
Okay, any questions? All right, next we have ordinance number 21-4473, non-exclusive fiber optic franchise for Joe Wheeler Electric and Subsidiary JWEMC Communications.
Yeah, that's what we discussed. It was introduced, it just allows them to serve, gives them a franchise to serve with high-speed internet in their service area within the corporate limits of the county.
All right, any questions there? All right, Mr. DeMeester.
Showtime.
All right. Where would you like to begin? General fund or my choice?
It's up to you, yeah.
Let's start with general fund, being that it's kind of the meat and potatoes of the process. So I guess I'll start off by kind of describing what we kind of did a little different this year. For the most part, the general fund budget is kind of, there's not a whole lot of discretion in it. We use a lot of averages and statistical approach to kind of come up with our operational needs. So the finance department kind of put together an initial budget. We went through and the mayor and I met with the finances liaison for the department, and then the department to go over where we were good, where we were bad, and kind of hash out a budget that we all kind of could get around and the mayor could get on, and that's what's been presented today. So you'll see their overall general fund budget. The total revenues are $71,910,424. That is an increase from last year of $6,897,073.
An increase of what was budgeted.
What was
last
budgeted, correct. Okay, so I also want this to kind of be informational for y'all, since this is your first budget, to kind of give you an idea of the makeup and how it looks. I know you can kind of get lost in all the details. It's a pretty big binder. So I'm going to touch on our 5 biggest revenues that make up that 71 million. Obviously, our first one is the sales and use tax. This is the 4% that is charged to tangible property. This is just the city's portion. 1% of that is given to the schools. Okay? Last year we budgeted 32 million. This year we're budgeting 34,998,000. Okay? Our second largest revenue is business city licenses, and we budgeted $5,700,000. That's relatively flat to actuals that we've received this year. Okay? It's a touch more. We're hoping to see some effects of having a new revenue manager with some ideas on catching people that aren't necessarily paying their licenses, as well as a new enforcement officer that starts in October. Our third revenue item, that's the third highest, is the garbage collection fees. This is Ordinance 144198. DU collects it for us. It increases each year based on the consumer price index. We are budgeting roughly $4.5 million on that. Number fourth is the 6 mil property tax. This is distributed from Morgan County. Its value is $4,291,700. And the fifth on our list is a TVA allotment we get. Just to give you some background on that, the TVA pays the state instead of paying the property taxes, and then 5% of their profit is distributed to 7 states which they service. So the amount's based on their power sales and profits. Alabama gets, TVA services 16 counties in Alabama, and so it splits the Alabama portion 16 ways, and then the county then distributes to us based on population for each city. Worth noting, appropriations that are determined by state law are taken off the top before they get sent to us. Okay? Any questions regarding revenue? We can deep dive more.
So, go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
I have one. Let me ask you now, our business licenses are flat, correct?
Flat to actuals, yes, sir.
Okay, flat to last year. But our sales tax revenue is going up by $5 million. Now, if we're not seeing new businesses, how are we projecting an increase of $5 million?
So the best way to answer that question, so we've projected what we feel like we're gonna finish out for sales and use tax for the end of the year. And what we've budgeted is actually $1.2 million less than what we're actually receiving. And so I can kind of touch on that. Conservatism is always the golden rule with this. It's my belief that the economy was pretty flush with cash, which is why we saw a lot of spending in our city. On top of that, I think a lot of people stayed home and didn't go on vacation, which would also increase that disposable money being spent in our city. And then lastly, I'm still seeing, based on my readings and whatnot, that there's still some supply chain problems, and I just feel better having a little bit of cushion from the sales and use tax to where I came up with that number. So we're actually under what we're projecting to finish this year. Does that make sense?
Okay. Well, it makes sense that we're under, but of course our last numbers won't be recorded until in November?
Yes, sir.
I'll just give you a call.
Yeah, so we just to add a little bit to that. The way we've projected the last 2 months was looking at historical actuals for those last 2 months.
So,
Yeah, I gather that. Okay, I'm good. Go ahead.
but your overall revenue of 71.5 is less than what you're projecting
In actuals,
in actuals
Yes.
for this year
yes, projected.
because of the reasons you just gave.
Yes.
But we also had shutdowns last year where you couldn't go to a
True,
restaurant.
and I'm specifically talking on sales and use tax.
Yeah.
I don't want to have that example be representation of all of our revenues, because I mean, this varies from things to admissions for some of our parks to gas to, I mean, there's a variety of things in there. So I don't know if specifically using economic conditions can be applicable to every single revenue
Right,
source we
yeah.
have in there.
So what is your projected revenue for this year? Do you know that?
Total general fund,
Yeah.
71,910,000.
And we're about 400,000 under
What we project.
what you're budgeting for next year
Compared
compared
to-
to actual this year, what you're projecting.
So I wanna keep saying it's projected and it's
Yes, I understand,
estimated,
yeah.
but what's that number, Don?
73,635,744.
So it's actually more than that.
Yeah, so it's 2 million, almost 2 million difference less.
True, and I'll provide some more
Well,
background.
can you what is the breakdown of that? Cause I guess you're saying 1.2 million is
Just
sales
for
and
sales and
use.
use, yeah.
And then where's the other?
Don, it's kinda everywhere.
Business license are flat, there's nothing big, it's just kinda,
Yeah, so to put this in perspective, in 20, we budgeted 68.5 million in revenues, and we came in at 71.5.
yep,
In 19, we budgeted 64.7 million, we came in at 70 million. And in 18, we've budgeted 61 million and came in at 65 million. So there's a pretty big gap. I like having the gap. I don't necessarily like it being that large, but I think we did a pretty good job in 20. Obviously, there's going to be a big gap this year, but that has a lot to do with the really conservative approach we took when we did it last year, with having no idea what the pandemic was going to do. I still, and again, I don't want this to be about what my opinion and my beliefs. I've had conversations with other CFOs in North Alabama. I'm on a thread with the Big Ten. And we had pretty good dialogue with what they're doing, and everyone's kind of taken this similar approach that we are. So,
yeah, I think that's good.
okay.
Any other questions there?
Okay. So we do a zero-based budget. So what that means is what we budgeted in revenues is what we'll budget in expenses. Okay? What we presented has a gap of $555,000. I'll get to that at the end. That's that P2 list in there, and I'll touch on that. But I just want to make it clear that there's a current gap right now. All right, so the expense side is, I kind of look at it in 3 separate buckets: the personnel bucket, the operating bucket, and the capital bucket. So on the personnel bucket, there's some key highlights I want to make aware to you all. Obviously, the biggest one is a 2.5% COLA, and that's roughly $3 million in cost. Okay. The second big item is a police reorganization. So this was recommended by the personnel board. A lot of conversation between city leadership to try to aid in the efforts to recruit more police in the city. So what this does is essentially takes where our hierarchy is, what I call it, the folks we have in police now, and bumps them to new grades. So an officer will move from grade 15 to 17. A sergeant will move from grade 18 to 19. A lieutenant from 20 to 21, and a captain from 22 to 23. That's roughly $815,000 cost. That includes total compensation as well. So that's not just salaries, that includes the increase in benefits as well. Okay? Third item worth noting is a paramedic incentive pay. This is a $5,000 I guess flat incentive pay is what you could call it. It has a price tag of $247,840, and that includes the FICA and RSA costs.
You said 247,000?
Yes, sir. Roughly 248.
Rochelle, how would we pay that? Is it a one-time bonus, or is it just part of your?
It's paid as an incentive premium on each bi-weekly pay period,
Okay.
flat rate.
Yep, all right.
Yeah, so that kind of prevents us from paying somebody the whole incentive up front and then leave.
Yeah, that
So
was
it's
my
kind of spread over. There was, I don't know if Chief Thornton's on the line. There was $50,000 added to the fire's overtime budget. I don't have the answer for why, but based on looking at actuals, it makes sense to increase what we did. I don't know if Chief, you're there to kind of touch on that. I know we have some vacancies in the department right now, so I can get y'all in.
Yes, there is,
Oh, there he is.
hey, Kyle.
Hey,
Yeah, we got you.
Hey, yeah, it was based on the overtime that we have to pay out on different events, that we, provide service for, and the overtime for, covering the shift, especially during COVID, when we got extra people off, during COVID.
okay, thanks, Chief. And the last item I have noted, we had some municipal court employees that are traditionally paid out of our corrections fund. I'll kind of touch on that when we get to it. We're moving that cost into the general fund, and that's roughly $254,000. Okay. Last thing to note in personnel are the additional headcount. We have 6 new positions. So I'll kind of go through them and the price tag, okay? There's an assistant city attorney, $131,000.
Yeah, this is everything,
Yes.
all in. All right. So,
Okay.
What was that number?
131,413. Okay. We have a person in revenue right now. You may notice, we have a person in revenue right now. We're hoping to convert from temporary employee to full time. That has it's a tax service representative. It has a cost of $17,800 additional. We have a police mental health liaison, $81,271. A trap.
Can I pause you real quick?
Yeah.
81,271, is that like the max on their negotiation pay? Or
That's-
is that like, that's like what they're like, we already hired somebody that's like their pay?
No, so it's a vacant position at the moment. That's the total amount for.
Oh, okay, I'm with you.
That's
I'm
not
sorry,
just
I apologize.
salary, it's benefits as well. These numbers include the total cost of the city.
So benefits and pay.
Yes.
Okay, apologies.
Number 4, traffic signs, Tech 2, $70,627. An engineer, $89,168. And an equipment operator 2 in solid waste. Our thoughts are for expanded growth. This will be needed. So I said equipment operator 2, solid waste, $47,291. And that kind of touches the big items in the personnel budget, personnel side of the operating budget, or
Can I-
general fund budget.
Can I ask you to go back to the police, when it comes to upgrading the sergeants, the lieutenants, and the captains?
Right.
Can you repeat that for me if you don't care?
Yeah, you have the officers? Did you have the officers one?
No, I'm sorry, I thought it was sergeants, lieutenants, and captains only.
Officers 15 to 17?
So it's a 15 to 17,000 increase?
No. Grade 15
Oh,
to
15,
grade 17.
okay, apologies, sorry.
And I can get you the proposed updated pay scale with the COLA so you can see what that looks like.
but it's altogether 815,000
Yes.
for every.
Okay.
Yes. Sergeant 18 to 19. Lieutenant 20 to 21. And then captains 22 to 23. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions on personnel before I go to operating? Good? All right. In the operating budget, pretty much the meat of the whole thing. Again, just a comment, our approach was using historical. We did try to be cognitive of COVID and how it impacted, so that was factored in, and we did a lot of discussing with the department heads to make sure we got it right. Some of the highlights, we are increasing our travel expense, so this has a lot to do with training and our conventions and seminars. It's up 135,000 across all departments. Parks and Rec had an increase of 371,000 for additional mowing and litter mitigation. Our police had an additional $100,000 moved into the general fund. We have an agreement with Morgan County for the jail. We pay them $100,000 a month. Typically, we use the corrections funds to cover it 1 month. Weren't able to do that this year, so the $100K comes to the general fund. Okay? So, yes, sorry. Typically, we pay for 1 month of that agreement, so $100,000 out of the corrections fund. We're not able to do that this year, and I'll kind of touch on that when we get to that fund. So to pay for that, we move that 1 month back into the general fund, so the full 1.2 million is in the general fund now.
Question, is that a set flat rate, or is that $100,000 like round up to be how many people we bring in?
It's an agreement in place.
So
from my understanding, it's agreement in place. It's a flat rate. It doesn't have, I think, any variableness to it based on how many people are there.
Who negotiates that agreement?
That was negotiated years ago and was in place. The idea was they expanded the Morgan County Jail in order to house our residents rather than house them here in our building. So that was a long-term agreement with them.
Okay, thank you.
It's a 20-year agreement. It doesn't matter if we have one inmate over there, or what's the total? Is it 83, Herman?
Something like that.
Or 83, it's the exact same amount. Now, if we go over that, then we pay even more than that. But if we don't use that, then they can use ours and not have any cost associated with that. Is that not accurate, Herman?
Yeah, of course, there's other expenses of housing that they absorb. That's it. They basically, we negotiated set rate of that amount.
Do you happen to remember the year where we are on 20 years? You said a long time ago.
I think it was 2016.
That sounds about
We
right.
got a long
About
time
5 years ago, but I
Yeah.
Can we renegotiate it?
Well, that's my question, is Paul, can we renegotiate it? Can we pull that contract? Because I believe $100,000 is a bit overboard. If I'm not mistaken, almost every other municipality pays by person they enter. If I'm not mistaken, Hartselle, Trinity, Somerville, all those municipalities pay by person. Why can't we pay by person? If
we have an agreement in place. Certainly we can negotiate, but it takes two to negotiate.
So what, okay, I'm guessing we can't pull that deal either way because we don't even have a jail anymore. So how would we go about negotiations with them?
You could meet with your representative on the county commission and ask him.
Thank you.
I think I have that agreement. I'll be more than welcome to share it with y'all, so you can take a look at it too. Herman, I'm sure, has it as well. So. Okay.
We'll look into it.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
But at this point, the 1.2 million is budgeted for FY22. Okay. Moving along. The IS department had an increase of $145K. That was related to software and computers and laptops. Brad is making an initiative to kind of try to expand our ability to be more mobile with our technology. I think he kind of learned a lot with the shutdown and whatnot, so I think it kind of serves perks in multiple ways. Appropriations, did you want me to go through the increases, or?
If there's any highlights, or if anybody has any questions on those.
Yeah, I think we kind of talked about
My only question is, I know there's been conversation, I haven't talked to you in, probably since we had those presentations since then, but conversation with the school, with Decatur City Schools on kind of what they might be taking on those appropriations.
So I had conversations with their CFO, Mandy. She was fine, but we kind of chuckled in the sense that not necessarily her and I's decision on that. So I think, I don't know, Carlton, if you had conversations with that.
I talked with them, and they said historically they were fine with paying what they had been for those specific approaches.
So they have to be specific to kids and the school being able to do them. And then the way it works is it would just come off that first payment we send to them in October.
But I don't know how If we allocate 1/4 of the penny to them, I don't know how we dictate when we allocate that 1/4 to them, what they use that for. And that, I didn't understand at the time, and I don't know that it should be done that way now.
I don't know that we can, I agree, but I think it's just kind of in good faith, we're saying, are you know.
Oh, to ensure that what we're,
Yeah, do they
ensure
feel
that,
there's value through those organizations to Decatur City Schools? And if they do, then they may give their allocation, but they are not obligated to.
from my understanding, this kind of setup was done last year and it was executed as you said, so I don't,
Yeah, but there's no obligation.
but there, you're right.
Last year, but it was done last year, but even at that time, I don't know how we dictate what they utilize the money that, I mean, what we give them out of that 4 cents, I don't know how we dictate what they use it for. And, so I don't know what the agreement is, but I think that once it goes across the street, it's theirs to use like they want to. I think that needs to be iterated and shown that, it's their money, if they choose to use it that way, that's fine. But if they don't, if they have reservations about using it, then there's nothing that, binds them to that. And I think that it's important that they realize that.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I also would say if they're not going to, the communication back that they would not do that is important, at least to us, because if you take something like Decatur Youth Symphony, they don't get funding, they almost can't operate, right? So they're pretty dependent on our funding. So if the school system's not gonna do that, I think we need to make sure we know if there's not gonna be some funding, because we then have to make a decision whether or not that organization can even operate next year. So,
But I don't have a problem with that at all.
Yeah.
I don't have any reservations about that. I think that, if we're going to require funding for those organizations, then, if we choose to, then we need to fund those, but we should not dictate, what the school system does with, funds once they go across the street. And again, that's not the first time I've said that.
yeah, I don't disagree. So maybe some work to do this week and next week on just the communication.
So I guess give me some better guidelines, because I've kind of done that already with.
And he has too, so I
Okay.
think if you two just want to communicate and,
Okay,
yeah.
sure. All right. Last thing for the personnel, worth noting is our debt service. There is it increased $1.5 million. The reason for that is there is a balloon payoff of the 2012 Lazy River debt worth $1.6 million. Last year, what we did was we anticipated the balloon debt. We averaged it over last year and this year. So essentially, we budgeted more than we were actually gonna pay this year we're in, but last year, to take that surplus to be able to pay what we're short this year. So that way we weren't looking for it. So that's that piece. And then I have a $600,000 debt service reserve in there for a potential, what I'm anticipating around $20 million bond borrow. The actual spend of that money will come at a later time. I just kind of have a placeholder in there now to be ready for that.
All right.
Okay. Moving on to capital, this will be short and sweet. Typically, we don't have a whole lot of capital in the initial budget. We'll wait for kind of a good feeling number from our auditor as he gets started on our audit a couple months after year end to give us a unassigned fund balance. From there, we'll kind of address a lot of the capital needs at that point. But the items that are capital in nature that we do have are $600,000 for police Tahoes. That's been a pretty consistent life cycle replacement each year. There's $100K for the fire department for their traffic signal for new Station 5. And lastly, $107,500 for fencing and floor replacement in the animal shelter.
So those are already in the.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay?
Because I see actually on the P2, not to skip ahead, but there's a traffic signal here too.
Yes, so I'm making note of that now, so
Okay.
you don't select those
Okay.
out of your P2.
Alright.
Okay, so that gets us to the gap of 555,000. I kind of liked the approach we took. I really didn't want to get into the business with the mayor and I making the decision on priority of which projects or which pieces of capital are more important. That's y'all's decision. So you have a gap of 555,754. I've given you some recommendations on the P2. By all means, that does not mean you have to use those items. They were taken and put together in a list from all of our meetings meeting with department heads. So I can do my best to try to give you a description of what some of them are, but I'll kind of lean on the department heads if you have any questions on those. Kind of need to get some direction on that if we possibly can to fill that. I don't know, Council President, if you want to do that now or how you want to tackle that.
I've got one that isn't on there. I've got one that isn't on there. Jason, you there? Guess not.
He was there.
There's roughly 31 city parks. If my math is right, 10 are in District 1, 10 are in District 2, 3 are in District 3, 6 are in 4, 2 are in 5. And I think Mr. Ladner's in the same boat I am. I don't have a swing set. District 3 is the largest landmass. Now, there is a park in Flint that was built by the city of Flint before they were annexed in, but I'd desperately like us to try to fund a park in District 3 with swing set and merry-go-round.
Point Mallard's not enough for you.
Show me the swing set and merry-go-round. No, I mean, I'm being quasi-serious about it. And you don't have one either. There's not one out there.
Didn't you say there was 2 parks?
Hmm?
How many parks do you have in District 5?
No, Jack Allen's one, and then what? It's the one by the school.
Oh, so you don't have any swing set
Hey, Carl,
merry-go-rounds, do you?
I know we've talked a lot about that, I don't have a cost for it, so I can't put it in without cost.
Well, I'm just getting it out there.
As far as
I'm with you,
as-
but hey, from this point on, Fort Myers safe.
As far as this list, I mean, what do you guys think about? We need to be able to give feedback to Kyle. I don't mind if you think we can do that next week. I mean, we don't have to fill the gap, but we need to because there's some important things on the list. But I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? Come back and discuss that, or just have that discussion in the meeting next week.
Would it be
Meeting next week.
Or do we email you our talk
Yeah,
request
so
and let you call?
what I
through
would
it
like
and
to
then-
do is have what we'll do, this is at the mayor level right now, speaking technical now. This is at the mayor level right now. It's being presented to council, proposed. What I bring for Monday for the vote is kind of the finished product. So if I could kind of have that in place before that work session so that we know what we're voting on. So email is fine if I could get that
yesterday.
before the close of business Thursday.
Mayor, do you have any thoughts there?
Yes. Well, the vote's Monday, so I have to have time.
You know, does the council have a list of the, you do?
The budget request, yeah.
Yeah, well, the budget request in a simple format where it's easy for you to see.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for that question and would need just a little time to think about a wise way to approach it, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with email, but you could.
Yeah, it could turn into
Yeah.
Jacob wants one thing,
There's
Kyle wants another.
$5.7 million, $5.8 million of requests here, and we have 500,000.
A lot of.
So I just email. I don't know. I think we should really have that conversation. I think if it's, this is just my opinion, if it's at the mayor level now, I think maybe you fill that gap where you think there's some needs in the departments. And then we can then, if we want some, deviation from that, we can vote on those when it comes time to approve the budget.
I'll second that one.
Could I still request your thoughts in an
Yeah.
email fashion?
I
Because
think
that
you
could,
would appreciate that too.
that would
Yes.
kind of guide the mayor and I if we do see some common.
Yeah, I think that's fine, but I
asks.
think the budget needs to be presented from you guys, and then we take a look at that proposal, and if there's changes.
I just want to make sure we're having the changes done before 30 minutes before the vote, because it's
Yeah.
going to take.
Yeah. So just email
Well-
both of you guys. And
Right, but then essentially I'm presenting again, and if you don't like what we've presented, we've kind of hit a roadblock again. So I'm trying to expedite it to where, do we have another discussion before the vote at a different day, or?
Why don't we, Thursday by end of day, you said end of business day, Thursday?
Maybe, it depends what else you're gonna add here.
Why don't we do that, and then, we'll see what you think, but we could have a longer, pre-meeting on Monday.
Okay.
And discuss the changes, but we could amend whatever the budget proposal is on Monday. So if there's changes that need to be made, or there's a consent, or there's 3 people that think a change needs to be made on Monday, we would vote on that at that time. Just like, I'm thinking back to last year, I think I was sitting in here, and a lot of changes were made to allocations.
Right.
And those were just amendments to the budget that were voted on before the budget was approved at a later time. But we would then, if it changes, we would have to come back.
Once you make the change, you would introduce it
Yeah,
as amended.
yeah,
And then you decide whether you want to go ahead and consider adopting it at the same meeting, but you want to go ahead and amend it before you introduce it.
yeah.
So there's no discussion in front of the public about these suggested changes?
No, there would have to be. I mean, we would discuss it in a work session.
What they're gonna do is, they're gonna,
30 minutes before.
Well, no, the mayor would, and CFO would present the budget to us, with the gaps filled, other than, which is 500,000 out of 71.5, right?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, that would be the only thing that changes from here, unless you have concerns or changes you want to present, that I would say speak up now in relation to general fund.
Yeah.
Because I need to get those changes in before essentially what I'm trying to do here is the attachment that I put behind an ordinance and the resolution kind of needs to be final, so that the vote is very clear of what we're doing.
Well, and what I'm hearing, and maybe I'm hearing the wrong message, but I appreciate the confidence that the council is showing in our CFO and me to present a budget to you.
You guys met with the department heads. We certainly can. There's a list of requests that the department heads have made. We can ask them about it as well. I actually talked to Brad before the meeting about some of his, so I think that's perfectly acceptable, and we can give you guys feedback by end of day Thursday. And then if there's any changes that need to be made, we'll vote on that at the meeting.
Very good.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so let's continue on to all of the, what I consider smaller ones. And I'll give you, these ones have more restricted in nature funding. So we'll start with the gas tax funds. We'll kind of go down the resolutions here on the agenda. Resolution 262, which is our gas tax funds. So this is comprised of 3 funds, a 7-cent, 4-cent, and 5-cent. Those are all state collections.
Can I step beside you, please?
They're charged per gallon. Okay. So for instance, on the 7 cent, 55% of that 7-cent charge is distributed to cities and counties. 25% is equally spread out to the cities and counties, and then 30% by population. From there, it gets broken down to specific cities in that county by population. Okay? Worth noting, there was a 2019 rebuild Alabama gas tax. 6 cents was implemented. It's a total of 10 cents. There was 3 phases. 6 cents was implemented in 2019, 2 cents in 2020, and a remaining 2 cents in FY22. All of these revenues are restricted for road projects. So Carl, I think, has provided y'all with the list of proposed resurfacing projects. What I've done is I've kind of scattered them to fit projected revenues in each fund to get them all. I think it's roughly, Carl, you can correct me, but I think it's $1.3 million in road resurfacing total.
Yeah.
If there's more revenue that comes in, we'll spend more on roads. If there's less revenue that comes in, we spend less on roads. Essentially, anything that comes into these funds is directly spent on resurfacing of roads. Okay? Questions? All right. Moving along to Heritage Trust. So the Heritage Trust derives from a lease of state land for oil and gas. The interest that's earned is distributed to the cities and counties. When the Alabama Trust Fund equals or exceeds $60 million, 10% of that interest is distributed to municipalities. This funding is restricted for capital improvements, payments of bond, principal and interest, restoration of capital improvements such as buildings and streets. Highlights in there are a few IT items. There's the standard $250,000 ADA compliance amount we have in there, and then a $1 million infrastructure economic reserve. That has been in there for roughly 2 years. Any questions? Okay. Corrections fund. So if you remember, we moved municipal court employees and a jail payment out of this fund. The revenues that generate the funds in this fund are specific to traffic offenses. We charge $37.50 in court cost per traffic offense, and then $64 in court costs for every non-traffic offense. These are restricted for the operation, construction, or maintenance of municipal jails, juvenile centers, or court complexes or other correctional facilities. Revenues were down this year, and the fund balances that was typically there is kind of getting drained. So based on projections for FY22, I didn't think it was smart to have those costs in that fund and be able to support it. So that's why they moved. Any questions? All right. Docket fee, these are restricted to court's operational expenses, training, and equipment for a multitude of enhancements to the court system. Revenues are generated from training fees, DA fees, solicitor's fees, driving school, and judicial administrative fees. This is very much flat and common from year to year. There's nothing really worth highlighting that we haven't done in previous years. Okay? Room occupancy. We've budgeted $488,000 in revenue. The only expense in this fund is their portion of the debt service from Ingalls, and then an advance they owe to the general fund and landfill. They have $1.4 million in their cash balance, and this funding is restricted at the discretion of the hospitality board for tourism product development. This is the $2 per night in the city, $1 per night in the PJ fee we charge. Okay? Hang in there, we're almost done.
What's in that, do you know the balance of that?
1.4. They do have debt to pay off.
And what's
so.
it, do you know annually what is collected for that?
How much revenue we generate?
Yeah.
I think it was, what did I say here? 488,000 is budgeted.
Okay.
That's combined PJ and city. Okay? The last two are enterprise funds. I kind of combine them together. Really, Jason and Wanda kind of guide us on these two budgets. Really, the only thing I'm wanting to see in those budgets is that revenues exceed expenditures. They both do. Point Mallard has more revenues than expenditures, and there was not really any key highlights to bring to your attention. As it comes to landfill, just bring to your attention that they have $24.5 million in cash. I had conversations with Ms. Tyler about trying to use the same strategy we did in the general fund with taking some of that cash and investing it.
Will we need county on board for that?
County, so the split is 50-50, so there would have to be the county on board with that. But just to give you some insight, we invested $20 million of the general fund's cash in 2019 and generated $470,000 in investment earnings.
Say that again, sorry, I was writing.
We took $20 million in the general fund and we invested that with Raymond James, and we generated $470,000 in 2019, and we're projecting $450,000 in 20. So I don't think we could do 20 million in there. They have some upcoming post-closure costs. Those run in the $5 to $6 million range. And I know Wanda probably will be coming shortly with some serious overhaul to big ticket equipment items like a grinder and a compactor, which are very critical to the operations out there. Okay? And that's all I have for this evening. Do you have any additional questions?
I'll add a comment. I just want to thank you for working so hard on the budget. I know you took a lot of time to do this, and it took a lot of your time, personal and work time, to complete this. And I'm pretty sure that we're all grateful for you, as well as guiding us through this process and helping us out.
Appreciate it. I won't take all the credit. It has a lot to do with the department heads, and Don and the team in finance did a lot of the grunt work, so I'm not going to stand up here and say it was all me, because
He was actually thanking Dawn.
He wasn't looking.
it was 100% a full city team effort. So I appreciate all the department heads too, kind of running with me in a little different way this year.
I think most of those guys were appreciative too, from what I've heard. So, again, just to echo what Hunter said, this is guys' first time to look at this, and I appreciate the binder.
Got it.
I look forward to it next year.
Fancy.
All right, so plan is, if there's anything, we're looking to fill the gap, but if there's any other changes as well
Yeah.
that anybody sees.
Fill the gap.
So what we'll do is we'll get some email participation from council. Mayor and I will meet to fill the gap. If there are any other changes, we'll look at those as well. And when we come back on Monday, we'll just highlight those changes, have any more discussion you would like, and then go to a vote at the actual meeting.
Yeah, and not to prolong this anymore, but my thought is, some of these items on the budget request are almost they're almost longer term type projects. I think kind of these immediate needs that are smaller tickets, maybe we can get more done if we approach those, and then depending on what revenues look like later, we can come back to some of those other larger requests if they're not immediate needs. But that's kind of how I'll look at this. But
Awesome. Appreciate the insight.
there was sarcasm.
There was not.
All right, any other questions for Kyle on those? else from any directors? Ms. Sandlin?
Yes, I sent you a report this afternoon in your email about the candidate interest for Director of Environmental Services. With a recommendation, you have 2 internal candidates, and you have several other external. But based on that summary, the recommendation is you move forward with an interview of the 2 internal candidates plus the external that had the majority votes. It was Christopher Howell. Finish that interview process and make a decision to either appoint someone or continue to recruit for the position. We would need that guidance to start scheduling the interviews and what date you want to schedule those on.
Does anybody have any?
Yeah, I'm good with the 2 internal, but I would like to almost open it up again, if possible.
Yeah, I think we go through, I mean, I think we need to work through this process with the candidates we have, and we may find the right candidate, and then if we don't, we go from there.
I'm just gonna say that I don't think we should open the process up until we at least do these interviews, give them a shot. I feel like the 4 that we have on there, I'm sure somebody's a great pick, but we shouldn't just open up the interview process again, even though they're coming to interview. That's a little overreach, a little pushy.
So if perhaps by Monday night, if we could have a date, that would be a good time to schedule those interviews. We're talking about 3 candidates, so we would need about 4 hours to work through that process.
Yeah, do you?
What time frame?
Yeah,
are
that's
we
what
looking
I
at?
was-
I mean, are we gonna, you looking in the next 2 weeks? 3
Yes,
weeks?
we would need at
As
least
soon
a
as
week.
possible?
As soon as possible. We need at least a week to schedule those. Our internal candidates are easy, but the external candidates.
When is Ricky's,
Pardon me?
when is Ricky leaving?
September 30th will be his last day.
Okay. So there is a little sense of urgency there.
Well, I
Well,
think
we have
that,
internal talent that, just as though if he were on vacation, we have 2 managers out there, we have supervisors, we have a strong team that can carry it
Okay.
if they need to.
it's a good feeling.
Okay, I think we move forward with the 3 that you recommended unless anybody has objection to that.
No, I'm good with that.
As far as when to interview, we looking week after next or next week?
Next week, if I can get a date, we can get them scheduled next week.
I mean, anybody wanna throw out a date now? Have we typically done it on Fridays? I mean, with the 24th, everybody wanna check their calendar, maybe if everybody could do the 24th, we could email you and let you know if that works. I think setting a date as soon as possible is our best option.
Okay, why don't we, if we, let's see, is the 24th good with everybody?
That's good with me.
I'm free as of now.
And McMaster's?
True.
Mr. Jackson, are you still on?
Yes, I'm still on.
Is Friday the 24th okay, for you to do interviews for, Ricky?
That's what we need to do. I'd rather not do it on Friday, but if that's good with everybody else, I think.
I could do it the day before, Thursday.
I can't do it the day before.
Those are tough for you, aren't they?
Thursdays are bad for me, but.
Wednesday?
I can't do it Wednesday.
I
I can do Mondays and Fridays.
You're getting short on them.
I can probably work around one of those days if we extend it out a little further, but
All right, Mr. Jackson, if we do Friday, does morning or afternoon work better?
If you guys do Friday and, it's not good for me, just whatever you said is fine, we'll work around it.
Well, he said Mondays or Fridays, so.
I mean, I could do Tuesday or Wednesday. Or Thursday evening.
Can you?
y'all just pick a day.
All right,
I'm starving.
Let's try Wednesday, the 22nd.
Stephanie, will you help with the posting for that? Thank you.
And you'll give us feedback if the candidates can make that work?
Yes.
Okay.
22nd.
22nd.
Next Wednesday.
Yeah, do y'all care afternoon or morning?
AM, please.
AM, okay.
Thank you.
8 AM or 9 AM?
Yeah, anytime in the morning.
8:30-ish.
8:30, yeah.
Start at 8:30, please.
All right, anything else from any other directors? Bane, sorry about the 8:30.
We forgot to ask Bane. Bane, is that good for you?
I'll be there.
Mayor, anything from you?
No, thank you.
Anything else from council? All right, we're adjourned, thanks.
Did you just look for the guy?